"Excuse me, you can't park here. This is HOA property." That was the very first thing she said to me. No introduction, no hello, just that sharp voice cutting through the quiet of the forest. I had just stepped out of my truck, boots sinking into soft dirt, the smell of oak leaves and morning dew filling my lungs. I hadn't even popped the tailgate yet when she came marching down the path, clipboard clutched to her chest like it was a badge of authority. A neon vest stretched across her shoulders with two words written in black marker: HOA Security. She looked like a crossing guard who'd wandered out of a school zone and into my woods. My woods, I reminded myself. Because this land, all 190 acres of it, belonged to me now, bought clean at a county auction, cash on the table, deed in my jacket pocket, but that didn't stop her. "You're trespassing," she repeated, planting herself right at the mouth of the trail like a human roadblock. "This is private community property, and you're not authorized to be here." I let the silence stretch a moment, just long enough to take in the scene. The towering oaks above us, the sun breaking through branches, the faint sound of Deer Creek somewhere in the distance. This was supposed to be a fresh start, a piece of land I could manage, protect, and maybe one day pass down. Instead, on day one, I was already being told I didn't belong. "I think you're mistaken," I said finally. I reached into my jacket and unfolded the deed. The paper was still crisp, the county seal pressed deep in the corner. "Name's Luke Porter. I bought this property 3 weeks ago. Auction, clear title, it's mine." Her eyes snapped to the paper. She snatched it from my hand before I could stop her. The speed, the entitlement, it took me back a step. She scanned the words like she was hunting for a typo. Her lips moved as she read aloud, "Parcel from County Road to Deer Creek, 190 acres. Her head jerked up. Her expression twisted into something I can only describe as rage dressed up as righteousness. "That's impossible," she barked. "This is community land. That trail," she jabbed a finger behind her, toward the narrow dirt path winding into the woods. "That's our walking trail. We built picnic tables out here. We've maintained this for years. You can't just buy it out from under us." I took the deed back, folding it carefully as if the paper itself was fragile. "Ma'am," I said, as evenly as I could manage, "I don't know what you were told, but the county listed this parcel as surplus. I won the bid. This forest is mine now." Her face went through 3 different shades before landing on a furious red. She looked at me as if I'd just stolen Christmas morning from every kid in the neighborhood. "You think you can kick us out after all the work we've put into this place?" she hissed. "I'm not planning to kick anyone out," I told her, and I meant it. "But from this point forward, anything that happens here happens with my permission. That's the law." I turned to my truck, grabbed the laminated copies of the deed and survey map I'd prepared, and started nailing them to a sturdy oak at the trailhead. The hammer echoed through the trees, each strike sending birds scattering. Behind me, she gasped like I was vandalizing a church. "You can't do this!" Her voice cracked into a pitch that could have shattered glass. "This land has been designated for community use. We have zoning approvals and everything." I paused, sweat trickling down my temple, and caught something curious in the corner of my eye. Half buried under the leaves, not 10 feet from where I stood, was a concrete marker. Old, weathered, but official, the kind the county used to set permanent boundaries decades ago. I made a mental note, come back with a shovel, verify the line. But for now, I turned back to her. "I'm not in your HOA," I said flatly. "I never was. I never will be. This land belongs to me." Her mouth opened and closed like she was trying to breathe underwater. Finally, she straightened, pointed a finger in my face, and declared, "This isn't over. I'm calling my lawyer. I'm calling the county. We'll see how long your little power trip lasts." Then she spun on her heel and stormed back toward the subdivision. That neon vest flapped behind her like a cheap superhero cape. I watched her go, the morning sun catching the edge of her clipboard, until the forest swallowed her up. For a moment, I stood there wondering if I'd been too blunt. Maybe there was a way to work with the neighbors, let them keep using the trail, ease them into the idea of new ownership. But then I thought about the way she grabbed that deed from my hands, the way she spoke like everything I'd just purchased was already hers. And I knew this was only the beginning. 2 mornings later, I stepped out onto the porch and froze. There was a paper taped to the side of my shed, A citation. Big red letters screamed across the top. HOA violation notice. The fine? $400. The reason? Unauthorized structure in community green space. Community green space. I almost laughed. That shed had been sitting there since the county first used this parcel for storage 30 years ago. But now, apparently, it was a crime scene. I yanked the notice down, shaking my head. That's when I heard the faint hum. A drone. It hovered 30 feet above my roof, camera eyes staring down at me like some mechanical vulture. I waved at it, didn't budge. Then it zipped back toward the subdivision like a guilty dog running home. I felt the first knot of unease twist in my stomach. That evening, things got worse. I opened my mailbox and found a certified envelope addressed to current illegal occupant. That alone told me what I was dealing with. Inside was a demand letter, printed on cheap stationery with a fake letterhead. Woodland Hills Community Association Legal Department. Wrong fonts. Duplicate dates in the corner. A return address to some random P.O. box. It claimed I owed 3 years of back forestry maintenance fees. 3 years before I had even purchased the property. And it threatened immediate seizure if I didn't pay within 10 days. Signed at the bottom, Paula Crowell, President and Legal Representative. I sat at my kitchen table, laughing, but not because it was funny. No, it was the kind of laugh that comes when you realize you're not just dealing with a nuisance neighbor. You're dealing with someone who thinks she can bully you out of your own land. The next morning, I went back out to the trailhead. Sure enough, Paula had put up a new sign. Fresh paint, white board, big green letters, private HOA park. I touched the corner with a tissue. The paint smeared bright green, wet. She'd probably made it that very morning. I stood there staring at it when I noticed something else. Half buried in the leaves, just a few feet away, another concrete marker. County survey. The real deal. And it didn't line up with Paula's new sign, not even close. The wooden stakes she had pounded into the ground, those neat little markers pointing to her so-called community trail, sat a good 20 feet past where the official boundary lay. That's when I knew. This wasn't just some territorial neighborhood president puffing her chest. This was deliberate. Someone had moved stakes, buried evidence, tried to rewrite the map in her favor. I brushed the dirt from the old marker, took a photo with my phone, and tucked it away for later. By the time I got home, my phone buzzed. A new email. It was from my surveyor, the man I'd hired to double-check the boundaries when I first bought the land. Luke, it read, found some discrepancies out there. Concrete posts don't match the wooden stakes. Need to meet tomorrow morning. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the screen. Something that had started as a simple property purchase was turning into a battle line, a shed fine, a drone over my house, fake letters, and now, proof that someone was out there at night, shifting boundaries like they could erase history with a shovel. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. This was no misunderstanding. It was a campaign, and I had just been drafted into a war I didn't ask for. The knock came just after sundown, 3 quick raps on my back door. Not the kind of polite tap you get from someone dropping off cookies. This was sharper, nervous. I opened it to find a man standing there with a leash in one hand and a phone in the other. Mid-40s, quiet eyes, the kind of person you'd pass on the street and never think twice about. His dog tugged gently at the leash, sniffing the air. "Mr. Porter?" he asked. His voice was low, cautious. "Name's Nate Jensen. I live right by the forest entrance." I nodded. "Evening. Everything all right?" He glanced over his shoulder, like he wanted to make sure no one was watching, then leaned closer. "Can I talk to you privately about the HOA situation?" That got my attention. I motioned him inside. We sat at the porch table, the night bugs buzzing in the distance, his dog lying quietly at his feet. Nate unlocked his phone, scrolled for a moment, then pushed it across to me. "Been documenting Paula for months," he said. "What she's pulling with you, she's pulled with other people too. Only difference is, you're not under her thumb like the rest of us." On the screen I saw screenshots, bank records, transfers, money that had supposedly been collected for trail maintenance and community improvement. Only, it wasn't going into any community account. It was going into Paula's personal checking account. I blinked. "You're telling me these HOA fees?" "Yeah." Nate nodded grimly. Not a dime has gone to the neighborhood. No receipts, no projects, no maintenance, just her pocket. I swiped through more images. HOA meeting minutes, sloppy, half-finished, none of them signed by a treasurer. In fact, there was no treasurer listed at all. Every document was Paula's handwriting. She's been running this place like her personal ATM, Nate continued. And people put up with it because, well, she makes life hell for anyone who asks questions. I thought back to the fake fine taped on my shed, the drone buzzing over my house, the bogus letter threatening to seize my property. Yeah, I believed him. But how'd you get all this? I asked. For the first time, Nate looked uncomfortable. He rubbed the back of his neck. My ex-wife, he admitted. She used to do Paula's bookkeeping. Kept copies of everything when she got pushed out. Figured she'd need insurance if Paula ever turned on her. After the divorce, she passed the files to me. Said maybe one day they'd matter. He looked me dead in the eye. Guess today's that day. I sat back, letting the weight of it settle. This wasn't just neighborhood politics anymore. This was fraud. Plain and simple. But Nate wasn't finished. She's planning something bigger, he said, voice even lower now. He tapped his phone again, pulled up an email chain. Been telling contractors she's got development rights, talking about cabins, wellness centers, a retreat facility. Says she's negotiating access through the trail. He handed me the phone. I read line after line, my stomach sinking further with each message. Site prep, foundation work, utilities, deadlines, all discussed, as if Paula already owned the place. She's not just making up HOA rules, I muttered. She's marketing a business that doesn't exist. On land that isn't hers. Nate leaned forward. She's convinced herself if she acts like it long enough, people will believe it. That's how she operates. She rewrites reality, and most folks, they go along just to avoid the fight. I looked out into the trees beyond my porch. The forest was dark, silent, ancient. My forest. And somewhere out there, a woman with a clipboard was spinning lies big enough to drag an entire neighborhood with her. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and sharp. But underneath it, something colder settled in. Resolve. Paula had played her game unchecked for too long. Now she'd picked the wrong person to bully. Because this wasn't just about money, or trails, or fake letters. This was about my land, and I wasn't about to lose it. I thought I'd seen the worst of it. Fake fines, bogus letters, drones buzzing my house. But then came the envelope. It was handed to me at the post office by Mrs. Taylor, who runs the neighborhood pharmacy. She walked up like she was delivering contraband, eyes darting around, voice barely above a whisper. You're the fellow with the new property, right? Luke Porter? That's me, I said. She slipped a manila envelope into my hand. You'd better look at this. My daughter works at a printing shop downtown. Said something didn't smell right. I opened it right there in the parking lot. Inside were glossy brochures. Full color, thick paper stock. The kind of thing you would see at a travel expo. Across the top, in elegant script, Woodland Luxury Retreat, opening soon in the heart of nature, my forest. Page after page showed artist renderings of cabins nestled among trees, a glass-walled yoga pavilion, even couples laughing over wine on a deck that looked suspiciously like the ridge by Deer Creek. And down at the bottom, in bold letters, Project Director, Paula Crowell. My hands started to shake. I flipped through faster. Spa amenities, guided hikes, exclusive access to community woodland trails. And then the kicker, a timeline, grand opening, next month. I couldn't breathe for a second. Next month? She was already taking bookings. Mrs. Taylor pressed a folded sheet of paper into my hand. This was clipped to the stack. Contractor communication, I think. Sure enough, it was an email printout. Contractor estimates for foundation work, utilities, landscaping, 8 months of construction, broken into phases. First phase, immediate site prep, pending property acquisition. But the property acquisition had already happened. I'd bought it. Clean, legal. Paula was advertising a retreat on land she didn't own. That night, I spread the brochures across my kitchen table, every glossy page glowing under the lamplight. My name wasn't on a single one of them. My deed might as well not exist in Paula's world. And it wasn't some half-baked idea. This was polished, professional, and expensive. Printing costs alone would have run into the thousands, which meant she had investors, customers, people handing her deposits for a fantasy resort on my land. I called Nate. He showed up with his laptop, the glow from the screen catching the worry on his face. "Look at this," I told him, shoving a brochure into his hands. He scanned it, jaw tightening. "She's gone all in. She's insane," I muttered. "No," Nate said, tapping the page. "She's deliberate. Paula doesn't move unless she thinks she's already won." I stared at the images again. Families smiling on porches, guests in white robes carrying glasses of champagne. My forest turned into a backdrop for Paula's empire. "She's selling something she doesn't own," I whispered. "And she's got the whole neighborhood believing she does." Nate leaned back, folding his arms. "Luke, she's been running scams for years. The difference is, this time she's aiming bigger, way bigger, retreat level big." I rubbed my eyes, exhaustion mixing with fury. "So, what's her endgame? Just keep bluffing until I give up?" Nate shook his head. "Her endgame is momentum. Once construction starts, once money changes hands, once people see buildings rising, it gets harder for anyone to stop it. Courts hate tearing down half-finished projects. She knows that." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Paula didn't need to own the land. She just needed to stall me long enough to pour concrete. After that, I'd be fighting not just her, but a whole machine of investors, contractors, and angry customers demanding refunds. I sat there in silence, staring at the glossy brochures fanned out on the table like a deck of cursed cards. Paula had already laid her bet. And if I didn't act soon, she'd win the pot with my forest. 2 days later, I walked out to the edge of my forest and thought for a second I'd stumbled into some kind of carnival. Folding chairs, a poster board sign. Paula pacing in front of them like she was about to host the State of the Union. The sign read, in her unmistakable block lettering, "Emergency Community Meeting, Illegal Land Seizure." And the kicker? She'd set it up right on my property line. I hung back at the edge, arms crossed. I wanted to see who'd actually show up. 15, maybe 20 residents trickled in. Some looked confused, others concerned. A couple carried lawn chairs of their own, like this was going to be entertainment. Paula stood tall in the center, clipboard raised like a gavel. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice carrying over the quiet of the woods, "our community is under attack. An outsider has illegally seized control of our forest preserve." And then she turned. Her eyes landed on me. "This man," she pointed, "Luke Porter, claims to have bought this land. But what he's really planning is to sell it off to developers, shopping centers, parking lots, destruction of everything we've built." The crowd stirred. I saw worry flicker across faces. Some people were already nodding, like they'd heard her version before. Paula gestured to the laminated deed I'd nailed to the oak tree. "These so-called ownership papers are fakes. He's posting forged documents to intimidate you. He wants your money, not your forest." I felt the heat rise in my chest. But before I could open my mouth, someone else stood. A woman. Calm, steady. The kind of presence that silenced a crowd without raising her voice. "My name's Nora Harris," she said. "I've lived here 12 years. Before we accuse anyone, I'd like to see the actual HOA charter that proves we own this land. Paula, can you show us?" The air shifted. Paula froze. Her confidence cracked, just a hair. "The charter is being updated," she stammered. "Our legal team is finalizing it." Nora tilted her head. "So, you don't have it with you?" "It's a matter of established use rights," Paula snapped, regaining some of her bluster. "We've maintained this property for years. That creates precedent." That was my cue. "Actually," I said, stepping forward, "I can clear this up." I pulled out my phone and held up photos of the old concrete survey markers. These are official county markers, buried under leaves until I dug them out. They've been here since the land was first mapped. Murmurs rippled through the chairs. "This trail," I continued, pointing behind Paula, "sits entirely on land I bought from the county. Here's the survey report." I handed it to Nora. She scanned it carefully, then nodded. "These measurements look legitimate." The silence that followed was heavy. Then Paula's voice cracked through it, higher, more desperate now. "Those markers were moved, vandalized. The real property lines are where our stakes are, installed by the landscaping team." Nora looked up slowly. The same landscaping team that's been billing us for years? Paula's jaw tightened. You're saying they moved county markers? Nora pressed. Paula's face flushed crimson. We've invested too much to let some outsider destroy our space. I stepped in, calm but firm. County markers are federal property. Tampering with them is a crime. And I have the receipts, the deed, and the title search to prove this was always county land, never HOA land. I handed Nora the documents. She read, lips pursed, then faced the crowd. This explains a lot, she said. Our fees keep going up, but we never see improvements. Maybe it's time we asked where that money's been going. The crowd shifted again. Questions flew. Where are the receipts? Why are we meeting on someone else's land? Why haven't we ever seen a treasurer's report? Paula tried to answer, her voice rising with each word, but the power was gone. She packed up her sign, folding chairs clattering, avoiding eye contact with the neighbors she'd ruled over for years. Nora lingered as people drifted away. She approached me quietly. I've suspected her financials for a while, she said. This dispute might be exactly what we need to bring her down. I watched Paula slam her trunk shut, that homemade authority vest crumpled in the back seat. Her kingdom was starting to crack. But I knew she wasn't done yet. Sleep didn't come easy after that so-called emergency meeting. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, Paula's voice still ringing in my ears. Around 3 a.m, I gave up. Slid out of bed, made coffee, and decided to check the wildlife camera I'd set up near the boundary line. It was motion-activated, night vision, meant to catch deer and foxes, not neighbors. I popped the memory card into my laptop, and what I saw made my blood run cold. There she was, Paula, sneaking through my forest in the dead of night, a small shovel in one hand, a canvas bag slung over her shoulder. She crouched near one of the old concrete markers, dug into the soil, then pulled out a wooden stake wrapped in reflective tape. She hammered it in, just far enough away from the real marker to create confusion. On the screen, in grainy green footage, I watched her bury false evidence. This wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was sabotage. The next morning, I called the sheriff's office. Officer Ruiz showed up in a dusty patrol SUV, clipboard tucked under his arm. A steady man, maybe mid-40s, with the look of someone who had seen plenty of neighborhood squabbles, but not like this. I led him inside, set the laptop on the table, and played the footage. He leaned forward, watching intently. Paula's face, clear as day, shoveling dirt under the glow of a flashlight. Well, he muttered, that's criminal trespass right there. And tampering with survey markers? That's a separate offense. Hope rose in me. So, you'll charge her? Ruiz sighed, rubbed the bridge of his nose. Here's the problem, Mr. Porter. Until a judge officially rules on the property lines, we can't press charges. She's claiming you're trespassing on her community land. My hands are tied until ownership is clarified. I stared at him, dumbfounded. You've got the deed, the auction receipt, the survey. You've got video evidence. What more do you need? He met my eyes, sympathetic but firm. A court order. Look, I don't doubt your paperwork, but Paula's been calling us too, says you're vandalizing community property. We can't pick sides without a ruling. The bureaucratic reality hit me like cold water. Even with proof, the system moved slow, and slow was exactly what Paula wanted. Ruiz closed his notebook. Here's what I can do. I'll file a report. I'll flag the video as potential evidence. But for now, nobody touches anything. No digging, no building, no new signs. Let the county sort it out. He gave me a look that said he knew it wasn't enough. Then he left. I stood there in my kitchen, fists clenched, staring at the laptop screen. Paula had confidence at that meeting because she knew this. She wasn't playing for ownership. She was playing for time. Time to move equipment in. Time to start construction. Time to make it so messy that no judge would want to unravel it. That night, I checked the cam again. And again. Every shadow made me tense. Every branch that snapped outside had me gripping the edge of the window. Paula had escalated. And the scary part? She wasn't done. Some battles are fought in daylight, papers and signatures and public meetings, but some are fought in the dark, shovel in hand, rewriting boundaries one stake at a time, and that's exactly where Paula lived. The next blow didn't come from a drone or a midnight shovel. It came in the form of a petition. Nate showed up at my porch one evening, phone in hand, face grim. "You need to see this," he said. On the screen was a scanned document, Paula's block lettering at the top. Emergency petition to protect community green space. The language was polished, almost noble. It spoke of preserving woodland habitat, protecting established recreational areas, preventing exploitation by outside developers, and at the bottom, signatures. Dozens of them. "Luke," Nate muttered, "she's already got 12 families signed on, maybe more. People think they're defending the environment. They don't realize they're backing her claim against you." My chest tightened. "She's weaponizing conservation." Exactly. I scrolled down the petition, bile rising in my throat. The phrasing was so careful, so manipulative. Any neighbor glancing at it would believe they were doing the right thing. Who wouldn't sign something that promised to save the trees? Except the truth was the opposite. Paula's so-called green space was the cover for cabins, pavilions, concrete. "She's lying," I muttered. Nate looked guilty. "I need to tell you something. Last year, she convinced me to help her reclassify a neighbor's backyard as protected wetland. Wasn't wet at all. We just filed paperwork to stall their deck renovation. Took months." I stared at him. "And you went along with that?" He dropped his gaze. "I thought she was protecting the neighborhood. That's how she hooks people. She makes it sound bigger than it is, like you're fighting for the common good." I paced the porch, hands on my hips. "And now she's doing the same thing with my land, painting me as the villain." Nate nodded. "She's persuasive. If she gets enough signatures, she'll march this into the county office. Ask for an injunction. That'll freeze everything in place for months. Months. Exactly the breathing room she needed to start construction." The anger inside me burned hot, but underneath it all was something worse. Doubt. Was I in over my head? Paula had connections, years of conditioning the neighborhood to follow her lead. And me? I was just the new guy with a deed in his pocket. That night, as I sat at my kitchen table surrounded by maps and documents, I realized something. Paula's weapon was fear. Fear of developers, fear of change, fear of losing the woods. She was feeding the neighbors a story they wanted to believe, that she was the guardian and I was the intruder. I couldn't fight that with paperwork alone. If she was spreading propaganda, I needed something stronger, something honest, something that couldn't be twisted, radical transparency. If Paula wanted to call me a developer, I'd show the community exactly who I was, a forester, a conservationist, someone who valued this land more than she ever could. I pushed the petition aside and grabbed a notebook. It was time to plan a different kind of counterattack. By Friday night, I'd had enough of playing defense. Petitions, midnight sabotage, rumors about shopping centers and bulldozers. Paula was painting me as the villain. Time to flip the script. So I sent out an invitation, handwritten notes in mailboxes, emails through the neighborhood listserv, even a flyer taped to the community board by the pharmacy. Guided forest tour with Luke Porter. Learn about local wildlife, habitat, and conservation plans. Saturday morning, 20 people showed up. Parents, kids, retirees with sun hats. Some curious, some skeptical. A few folded arms told me they'd already heard Paula's version. I greeted them at the trailhead, standing beside the laminated deed nailed to the oak tree. "Thanks for coming," I said. "This isn't about politics. This is about trees, creeks, and wildlife. You deserve to know the truth about this land." We started walking. The forest was alive with morning light, shafts of gold piercing the canopy. The kids darted ahead, chasing squirrels, while I carried my surveying kit and a folder of documents under my arm. At the first stop, I pulled out soil testing equipment. "This is loam," I explained, letting the earth crumble between my fingers. "It drains well, supports strong root systems. Exactly the kind of soil that lets oaks reach 200 years. A little girl raised her hand. "How old are these trees?" "Some of them, older than your grandparents," I said with a smile. "And they'll outlive me if we protect them." The crowd chuckled softly. Tension eased. We moved on. At the creek, I knelt by the water, pointed out tracks in the mud. "Deer corridor," I said. "They travel through here every season. Coyotes, too. This stream connects to a larger watershed. Build the wrong thing here, and you choke off half the wildlife in the region." Parents leaned in, genuinely interested now. One father asked, "So you're not planning cabins or a shopping center?" I shook my head firmly. No cabins, no malls. I'm a county forester. My career is literally protecting land from inappropriate development. My plan is conservation, with community access for hiking, birdwatching, and education. That's it. A murmur ran through the group, relief, maybe even embarrassment that they'd believed Paula's story. I decided to show them proof. At a clearing, I laid out maps on a picnic table. These are the county survey records. These, I tapped the photographs, are the original concrete boundary markers. Paula's wooden stakes don't line up because she planted them herself. Nora, standing near the back, stepped forward to examine them. She nodded. This matches what I saw at the emergency meeting. Then Margaret, a quiet woman I hadn't met before, spoke up. Her voice trembled. Paula fined my son for using his wheelchair ramp, she said. Made us tear it down until she approved it. 3 months he had to use the back door. He's 16, disabled. She called it a community standards violation. The group went silent. Faces hardened. Another man cleared his throat. I'm a retired accountant. Been reviewing HOA numbers for years. They don't add up. $15,000 collected in assessments. No receipts for actual improvements. One by one, stories spilled out. Fines, humiliations, missing money. Paula's authority, once ironclad, was starting to unravel right here in the dappled sunlight of my forest. I unrolled a drone image, pointing at the playground. This? Built 12 feet onto my property. The clubhouse, same problem. All of it technically trespassing. Gasps, murmurs, anger. Someone asked nervously, "What if Paula sues us for siding with you?" I looked them in the eye. I've already filed a motion with the county. Anyone who's paid fraudulent fees or received illegal citations is protected as a witness. She can't silence you. I let the words hang there. For the first time, I saw heads nodding, not in doubt, but in agreement. By the time the tour ended, several neighbors were shaking my hand, thanking me for honesty. A few even offered to testify. The kids waved goodbye, chattering about deer tracks and tree rings. As the group dispersed, Nora lingered. She studied the fresh survey equipment we'd spotted near the creek. Tripods, measuring poles, professional-grade tools I hadn't set up. "Luke," she said quietly, "this isn't just a PR stunt. That layout? It's for foundations. She's planning real construction. Soon." Her words hit like thunder. Paula's petition wasn't just talk. She was moving fast. I walked home that afternoon with a folder full of allies, and the sinking realization that the battle was about to get louder, dirtier, and more public than ever. A week after the forest tour, I thought maybe things were turning. Neighbors had started waving instead of glaring. A few even emailed me, thanking me for showing their kids what real conservation looks like. But then Mrs. Taylor found me again. Same woman from the pharmacy who had slipped me the brochures before. This time, she looked even more serious. "Luke," she whispered, tugging a manila envelope from her purse, "you'd better see this. My daughter called me again. Another rush job at the printing shop. Only this time, it wasn't just flyers." I opened the envelope on the hood of my truck. Out slid glossy trifold brochures, new ones. Woodland Luxury Retreat, Grand Dedication Ceremony. Date, 2 weeks from now. Location, my forest. The images were more detailed now. Cabins labeled with numbers, a spa pavilion, a conference center, even eco-friendly parking solutions. And in bold letters at the bottom, advanced bookings accepted, deposits non-refundable. My stomach dropped. Mrs. Taylor handed me another sheet, an email printout, this one worse than the last. It was a contractor estimate, detailed, professional. Foundation work, main lodge, 6 guest cottages, utility installation, septic, power, water lines, landscape modifications, creekside spa terrace. Estimated cost, nearly $2 million. Signed off under Project Director Paula Crowell. I leaned against the truck, feeling dizzy. This wasn't backyard HOA nonsense anymore. This was big money. Mrs. Taylor touched my arm. "Luke, people have already paid deposits. My neighbor's cousin booked a weekend package for next spring. She thought it was legit." I gritted my teeth. She's selling vacations on land she doesn't even own. That night, I spread everything out on the kitchen table: brochures, contractor emails. The LLC registration Nate had helped me dig up weeks before. Woodland Luxury Retreats, registered 6 months ago. Paula listed as managing partner. But here's the twist. The business address wasn't my property at all. It was a parcel 10 miles away, inside the state park system. She'd registered her company with bogus coordinates, then shifted the whole pitch onto my forest when it became available. Fraud layered on fraud. The phone buzzed. It was Nate. "You sitting down?" "Why?" I asked. "She's telling folks you're planning to clear cut, shopping center, big box stores, the works. She's walking door to door with another petition, saying she needs signatures to stop you." I pinched the bridge of my nose. "She's turning me into the villain again." Nate sighed. "And people are scared. She knows how to push those buttons." I looked at the glossy brochures spread out in front of me, at cabins and couples laughing in the sunlight. "This isn't fear-mongering anymore," I said. "This is theft. Real theft. She's taking money for something she can't deliver, and if she breaks ground before the county steps in, it'll be chaos." Silence stretched on the line. Then Nate said softly, "What's your move?" I stared at the stack of evidence, anger boiling but sharp now, focused. "My move," I said, "is to make sure the county knows everything. Every brochure, every fake marker, every dollar she's taken. If Paula thinks she can bluff her way into a retreat empire, then it's time to show everyone the hand she's really holding." And for the first time since this battle began, I felt like I wasn't just defending my land. I was hunting the truth. I woke up that Thursday to a sound I'd prayed I'd never hear on my land. Engines, heavy, grinding, mechanical. I ran to the window. Through the trees I saw it. A yellow excavator lumbering down the trail like some prehistoric beast. Behind it, a pickup stacked with rebar and lumber. And behind that, cars. A whole caravan. By the time I threw on jeans and boots, the forest entrance looked like a festival. Balloons, a temporary pavilion, caterers setting up tables with linen cloths, and at the center of it all, Paula, wearing a tailored suit and a satin ribbon draped like she was about to cut it with golden scissors. A banner stretched across the pavilion. "Woodland Luxury Retreat. Grand Dedication. My land. My forest." I forced my way through the gathering crowd. Local business leaders shook hands. A county politician rehearsed a speech. Cameras flashed as if this were a real, sanctioned project. And there stood Paula, clipboard in one hand, ribbon-cutting scissors in the other, greeting guests like a queen on coronation day. "You can't be serious," I said, stepping into her path. She smiled, sweet, poisonous. "Oh, Luke, you should be honored. Your little patch of woods is about to put this community on the map." "It's not your land," I snapped. "You don't have permits, you don't have title, you don't even have jurisdiction." Paula leaned in, voice low. "All I need is momentum. Once the first foundations are poured, no judge will tear it down. Too many jobs, too much investment. You can wave your deed around all you want, but I've got cameras and politicians." Behind us, the excavator roared to life, bucket lowering toward the soil near the creek. "Stop!" I shouted. But my voice was drowned out by applause as Paula raised her scissors and posed for photographs. And then, salvation. 3 county vehicles barreled down the access road, lights flashing, dust billowed, tires screeched. The excavator operator froze mid-swing. The crowd fell silent. Out stepped Officer Ruiz, his uniform crisp, jaw set. Beside him, a county building inspector with a megaphone, and the county assessor carrying a clipboard thick with files. "Ladies and gentlemen," the inspector's voice boomed, "this event is being shut down immediately. All unpermitted activity on this property must cease. Equipment operators, cut your engines. Guests, please vacate the premises." The shift was instant. Murmurs, nervous laughter. Phones pulled out, not for ribbon-cutting selfies anymore, but to call lawyers. The politician shoved his speech into a pocket. The tourism rep ripped off his name tag and backed toward his car. Caterers packed sandwiches into crates with military efficiency. Paula's smile cracked. "Excuse me," she called, desperation lacing her voice. "We do have rights here, established community rights." But Ruiz cut her off. "Miss Crowell, we've reviewed the survey. This land belongs to Mr. Porter, And until permits are issued, which they have not been, this ceremony is over. Her face drained of color. The assessor stepped toward me. Mr. Porter, we've also completed the boundary check you requested. There's something you need to see. He handed me a map, red lines, measurements, a box note at the bottom. According to county records, he explained, the HOA Clubhouse Foundation extends 12 feet onto your property. That building Paula's been running meetings out of, part of it sits squarely on your land. The irony landed like a hammer. While Paula had been accusing me of stealing trails, she'd been running her entire operation, her throne room, on stolen ground. I held the map high so everyone could see. The HOA clubhouse itself trespasses on my property. Every meeting, every fee collection, every so-called enforcement she's carried out was conducted illegally. Gasps. Someone actually laughed. Cameras clicked furiously. Paula staggered back, scissors trembling in her hand. That's impossible. The clubhouse has been there 15 years. The assessor shrugged. 15 years of being in the wrong spot doesn't make it right. The crowd began to thin. Investors muttered curses under their breath. The politician climbed into his car without so much as a goodbye. Officer Ruiz stepped closer to Paula. Ma'am, you are hereby ordered to remove all signage, equipment, and personnel from Mr. Porter's land immediately. Failure to comply will result in charges. The inspector gestured toward the excavator. Get that thing out of here, now! Engines sputtered to life again, but this time in retreat. The excavator backed down the trail, men shouting directions, sweat dripping as they scrambled to undo what they'd started. And in the most surreal moment of all, Paula herself had to climb onto a ladder and pull down one of her own signs. Private HOA property. Cameras flashed, catching the humiliation in full color. I stood there, hands in my pockets, watching her authority crumble in real time. The woman who tried to erase my deed with a clipboard and a vest was now packing up balloons from her failed empire. And for the first time, I let myself smile. This battle wasn't finished yet. But the tide had turned. The days after Paula's failed ceremony felt almost unreal. One moment, she was strutting around in a ribbon-cutting sash. The next, she was a pariah, caught on camera tearing down her own HOA property sign under county orders. And the fallout came fast. County officials issued fines, triple penalties for fraudulent fee collection, over $9,000 in total. Residents who had been scammed for trail maintenance got restitution. Paula's pride and joy, the Woodland Luxury Retreat LLC, was revoked, and state regulators opened an investigation into her accepting customer deposits for a business that didn't even legally exist. Every headline, every photo that spread online told the same story. The mighty HOA president exposed for fraud, caught trying to build an empire on stolen land. But the most satisfying consequence wasn't in the newspapers, it was in the neighborhood itself. For years, Paula had ruled by fear, fines, threats, humiliation. Now, those same neighbors gathered in the community center to vote her out of office. I didn't attend, but Nora filled me in later. They didn't just remove her, she said with a tired smile. They tore the whole thing down to the studs. New bylaws, new treasurer oversight, monthly transparency reports. It's a different HOA already. Nora herself was chosen as interim president. Calm, steady, no clipboard theatrics. But the real turning point came when the new board approached me, documents in hand, eyes lowered like schoolchildren about to ask for a favor. The HOA clubhouse, their nerve center, their meeting hall, stood 12 feet onto my property. Without my written permission, they had no legal right to use it. They knew it. I knew it. Everyone knew it. And so, they asked for an agreement, a way to keep using the clubhouse without facing demolition orders. I'll admit, I thought about saying no. After everything Paula had put me through, after the sleepless nights, the fake petitions, the threats, denying them would have been easy. But I also thought about the kids chasing squirrels during my forest tour, about Margaret's son and his wheelchair ramp, about neighbors who'd been lied to, just like me. So, I signed an agreement, $1 per year, that's all, symbolic. In exchange, the HOA agreed to maintain conservation standards on trails, protect wildlife corridors, and post annual reports so no one could ever pull Paula's stunts again. When Nora slid the paper back across the table, her hand trembled, not from fear, but relief. "This feels fair," she said softly. "It's more than fair," I told her. "It's accountability." And just like that, the battle that started with Paula waving a fake security vest ended with me setting the rules, quietly, firmly, legally. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Paula had tried to claim my forest as community land. In the end, the community had to come to me, hat in hand, to use their own clubhouse. And every year, when that $1 check crossed my mailbox, it would remind them, and me, of where the true boundaries lay. It's been a year since Paula's empire collapsed. The forest is quiet again. The creek runs the same way it always has. Deer still cross at dawn. Owls still call at night. But for me, and for the neighborhood, nothing is quite the same. Every so often I still get questions. Folks stopping me at the hardware store, or waving me down as I load lumber into the back of my truck. "Hey Luke, you're the guy who stood up to that HOA president, right? The one with the retreat scam?" I smile, nod. "That's me." And they shake their heads in disbelief. Never thought I'd see the day someone finally stood up to her. The truth is, I didn't set out to fight a war. I bought this land to find peace. A quiet place where I could work with trees instead of paperwork, listen to birds instead of complaints. But sometimes, peace has to be defended. Paula taught me that boundaries aren't just lines on a map. They're promises. Promises that what's yours can't be taken. That lies and intimidation only work if you let them. She crossed those boundaries, again and again, and each time I had to decide, back down or push back. I chose to push back. Not because I wanted a fight, but because I couldn't live with myself if I let her rewrite the truth. The neighbors learned something too, about transparency, about not letting one person with a clipboard and a loud voice control everything. They've got Nora now, steady, fair, not afraid to show the books. And every spring, when they send me that $1 check for the clubhouse access, I laugh. Not out of spite, but out of gratitude. Gratitude that the reminder exists, that we all know the cost of letting someone run unchecked. The forest itself bears scars. Little patches where Paula's survey crews staked flags, places where the excavator bit into the soil before the county shut it down. I walk those spots sometimes, kneel, run my hands through the dirt. Then I plant something, a sapling oak, a cluster of wildflowers, new life where deception tried to take root. And I tell myself, this is how you heal land and people, one boundary respected, one truth planted at a time. If you've listened this far, maybe you've had your own battle, a neighbor who pushed too far, a boss who thought the rules didn't apply, a so-called friend who tried to move lines that weren't theirs to move. It hurts. It drains you. Sometimes it makes you question if the fight is worth it. But let me tell you, it is. Because once you draw that line, once you stand your ground, peace feels different, stronger, hard-earned. And maybe that's the real legacy of this forest. Not just the trees or the wildlife, but the reminder that truth still matters, that land can't be stolen with fake stakes and fresh paint, and that communities can recover when they choose honesty over fear. So, take care of your own patch of ground, whatever it may be, your yard, your home, your family. Protect it. Because if you're lucky enough to have trees, protect them too. I'll be out here, down the trail, doing the same.